When you look at the Saturn, what is the first thing that comes in your mind? Its magnificent rings, right? These are huge, bright, and incredibly beautiful. In fact, Saturn rings are so iconic that when people imagine the solar system, this is often the first image that comes to people's mind. But we are still not completely sure about how these rings were formed. There are multiple theories beyond this, suggesting they are billions of years old, or some people might say they are relatively young. So, how did Saturn actually get its ring? Let's go in that. So, at first glance, Saturn rings look like solid structures, but these are not solid much. In reality, the rings are made of billions of tiny pieces of ice and rock. Yes, you heard it right. There is also ice involved in it. There are some particles which are as small as the grain of sand, and others might be as large as houses or even Mount Everest. These fragments orbit Saturn at incredibly high speed, forming the wide flat rim system as we see today. What is fascinating is that these particles are mostly ice, which is why the rings appear so bright as sunlight hits them with reflection. So, what is the biggest mystery about that? So, where did all the material came from? Here's the first theory which suggests that it's called the moon theory, destroyed moon theory. One of the most widely accepted ideas is that Saturn rings were formed from one of its moon which got destroyed. Its theory is like long ago, a moon of Saturn was just orbiting it like we do, but there was the moon drifted too close to the planet, which crossed a dangerous boundary, which is known as Roche Limit. So what is a Roche Limit? Roche Limit is a distance where a planet's gravity becomes so strong that it can literally tear any object apart. So when the Saturn's moon crossed its Roche Limit, Saturn's powerful gravity pulled it apart piece by piece, and the result was a massive cloud of debris began orbiting the planet. Over time, the debris spread out wide and flattened into rings we see today. The another second theory is called comet collision theory. This theory suggests that a large comet or asteroid might have slammed into one of the Saturn's moon. Seems unreal, right? But the impact would have been unbelievably violent. Imagine an explosion so powerful that it shatters an entire moon into countless fragments. These fragments would spread, orbit around Saturn, and eventually form the ring. This kind of collision is not impossible. We have many experienced massive impacts throughout history, but scientists are still debating whether this scenario explains the Saturn rings completely. You tell me, which one do you believe more, first theory or second theory? So let's go on for Saturn's rings' age. Are they ancient or much young? For a long time, scientists believed that Saturn's rings were formed when solar system itself was forming, about 4.5 billion years ago. But the newer observations suggest something other. The rings might be much younger, perhaps only 100 to 400 million years old. Seems like a joke, right? 400 million is still very, very old, right? But on a cosmic time scale, this is very recent, okay? So, if this is true, that Saturns didn't always have rings then. And whatever may be the fact, but these rings are slowly disappearing. As beautiful as Saturn's rings are, they are not permanent, they are temporary. Scientists have believed that the rings particles are slowly being pulled towards Saturn by its own gravity, and this process is called as the ring reign. Tiny icy particles gradually spiral inwards towards the planet's atmosphere and it falls into it. Over millions of years, this process will slowly drain its own rings and eventually Saturn will lose them entirely. So, this could happen around in 100 million years. In other words, that we might be living the beautiful time when Saturn looks very spectacular. So, why are Saturn rings unique, right? We all know that Saturn has rings, but the other planets also have rings, right? Such as Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune also have rings. They are much thinner, darker, and harder to see. Saturn rings are different because they contain an enormous amount of bright, icy material. That's why they reflect so much sunlight and appear so stunning to telescope. So if you have a telescope at home, go head out and watch out for Saturn because of its beautiful rings. Cause in another 100 or 400 million, you might not see Saturn.